Hello, Catherine here. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video. So, a couple days ago, I uploaded a video in which I cast some suspicion and doubt on the authenticity of a conversation and supposed level of proficiency that Nathaniel Drew, a popular YouTuber, had reached after studying Portuguese for 1 week. I stand by my doubt and assertion that that conversation was faked. In the very least, it was certainly not after 1 week of study. His learning Italian in 1 week, two-parter, ends with him having an even more sophisticated and much longer conversation with a native speaker than the Portuguese video. So I'm going to go a bit deeper and a bit longer about the utter audacity to act like he learned that in a week. I don't like a false image and a false claim and a false impression, especially when you are crafting very carefully an image that you have figured something out, that you know the truth and you know the best way of doing stuff. I'm not knocking somebody trying to share something valuable, or even showing off, or trying to instruct others in an effective or efficient way of doing something. That's not what this is about. There's something about his personality and his claims and his image that gets under my skin. But before I really tear into his video, let me just say, you do have to have a certain hubris and arrogance and confidence in yourself and your abilities to become truly excellent at what you do, and to develop a lot of wisdom. Actually, I don't think humility is humility comes, I think, after experience. Because even the most gifted and studious, industrious people will find that there's a lot that they don't know.
So this week I'm going to see if I can become fluent in Italian. Is that possible? Look, the truth is I think the way foreign languages are taught in school is a joke. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I notice he has a bit of contempt for traditional learning in classrooms, probably. It kind of tips me off that maybe he really chafes under that kind of structured environment, and there's an authority.
I've broken up my approach into 4 stages that I want to share with you as I push myself to see how far I can take things in 1 single week while still maintaining the rest of my life and responsibilities. At the end of the week, I plan to test
Okay, so if he's not really going to do a whole lot to cut down on the other aspects of his life, like sleep, or eating, grooming, just kind of the daily tasks. And also, if he's going to continue any kind of work obligations or activities like filming, editing, scripting conversations, things like that, then let's be generous and say he's still doing it full time. 8 hours times 7 is 56 hours. What can you accomplish in 56 hours? Can you become fluent? Heck no. Can you become proficient? Also, heck no.
Ma non posso. Amo Italia. Very disrespectful. I apologize. I do have a respect for the Italian language. I'll stop with that right now. Bye. Okay, all right, that's it. I got it out of my system. The thing is, there's not a whole lot that I can do with that. I've studied the language a little bit here and there over the last 1.5 years, But I've always kind of fallen out of the habit and then lost most of my progress. What that basically means is that my Italian remains pretty much useless. I can't connect with people, I can't have conversations. There are some Italian artists that I really like, but I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So
I'd like to see how he goes from not making something habitual, losing progress, and not being very motivated to keep it up, to intensive, sustained effort for 1 week. Either he's minimizing his progress prior to this experiment, or in 1 week he crammed enough and practiced enough to hold a scripted or nearly scripted conversation.
start off by telling you what I'm not going to do. And this is a mistake that I see a lot of language learners make. I see a lot of people download the app Duolingo and start, learning vocabulary. Now, in the long term, it makes sense to have as much vocabulary.
I'm also curious what makes him an authority on foreign language learning.
You're having a conversation with somebody.
Has he been doing this for a very long time?
Like kitchen vocabulary.
What makes him specifically qualified?
Topics can come up, but they're not.
Why does he know the correct way or the wrong way or the mistakes people make? If he's been doing this, say, for years and years and years, and has spent thousands of hours, and he's telling you a real workaround, I can get behind that, but I'm not convinced.
It's generally pretty consistent, okay? So bear with me. I'll give you some examples. 80% of wealth is held by 20% of people. 80% of screen time goes to 20% of actors. The top 20% of classical composers are listened to 80% of the time. Okay, you get the idea. So check this out. This has the potential of blowing your mind, okay? So stick with me. There are a little over 170,000 words in the English language.
This is a really simple concept that he's stretching incredibly thin to explain why you should focus on a set of really, really common words, because they will be used the vast majority of time in typical conversation. I mean, my mind's not blown, but this still is not telling me a whole lot about the actual intensity of your focus and the actual hours.
It really cracks me up. It's like I don't need to learn words like pan and oven to have a general conversation with somebody. So that is where I'm going to begin. I'm going to start these first couple of days by learning the top 1,000 Italian.
Well, this is one method we can agree on. You're going to have to write things down and review, and you're going to have to write them down a lot if you want to remember them. This has been scientifically proven that writing things down helps with memory retention.
Writing down the 1,000 words on this notepad and reviewing the list over and over again. And I'm also going to record myself speaking the words and their translations. Road, strada, perhaps, forse. And listen to that while I do stuff like exercise or anything else that allows me to listen while I'm doing that activity.
So what he's talking about, or what I term supplementary or follow-up or even passive learning sessions. This is where you're not actually writing things down or actively trying to translate. It's when you're just exposing yourself to the language in a more passive way, like listening. So you're doing something else, or you're watching something, but you're not really straining to translate it.
I also recorded all the vocabulary and I've been listening to it over and over again. Okay, I'm going to jump in here again with a few things that I want to add. First of all, it's okay to be a little bit obsessive. 2 or 3 hours a day really isn't much if you're smart with your time. Just replace a couple of episodes of whatever it is you're watching on Netflix and listen to a podcast or a voice.
Okay, so 2 to 3 hours a day. If you are focused for that amount of time,
technology is on your side.
either consecutively or cumulatively throughout the day, you will make progress. If he's trying to learn 1,000 words though, that's stretching that attention and that focus awfully thin.
Word fico or figo, a variation, which is an Italian word for cool. Turns out fico also means fig, which is kind of what that sounds like in English, honestly. I just picture a bunch of Italians partying around a fig tree, because I guess that's what cool people do in Italy. And boom, you better bet I'm not going to forget that word anymore.
So I suppose in his galaxy brain, he contemplates all these different associations with all the thousands of words that he's going to learn. Well, I'm sorry, 1,000 words that he's going to learn.
Branch out in a few different ways from just memorizing vocabulary.
I'm trying to figure out where the hours are. Is this all happening subconsciously? Or does this look really nice for a film?
Learning the most common verbs, the most common 2 or 3 tenses, which is usually enough to communicate, and connecting words like of, in, and on. The important part isn't so
Well,
much the
halfway through the week, we are now actually dealing with grammar. So he only spent a few days with 1,000 words and contemplating their connections to various things and concepts and, English words as well. Now we're going to get into grammar and somehow glue all this together.
words or phrases that seem to be very important. Okay, so in this case, I've noticed the word ci, like all over the place in Italian, and I don't really understand it. I don't get it. So I'm also going to spend some time researching that today and trying to figure out what it means.
Are you telling me that this far into his studies, like halfway through the week, that he's noticed this very important word, and now he needs to research what it means, and in a few days he's going to hold a conversation?
Tense has its own rules, and then every single tense also has its own irregularities. So I basically
On day 4, now he has spent a few hours studying tenses, and there are almost 24 tenses, and he's going to have to, keep in mind, retain the 1,000 words as much as he can, because remember, he spent a few days on that. Remember conjugations, though I don't know if he's reviewing them right now, and somehow learning tenses and irregularities.
So if you're learning a language and you're struggling with it, please know that I feel your pain, okay? You are not alone. There's a part of me that feels very like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
In presenting the expansiveness of this language, he's kind of saying, oh yeah, I'm under the pressure. So he kind of gives you that pat relatability speech, oh, you're not alone if you're struggling. Of course, this is going to be completely turned on its head when he blows your mind with his results.
Is part of my short-term or working memory, okay? And the brain needs a chance to turn the short-term memory into long-term memories through the hippocampus. This is done during sleep.
Does anyone else get the impression that he always has to be the smartest person in the room?
An all-nighter before an important exam. You're not going to keep that information for the long term, so really it was kind of a waste of time to do it in the first place. See, my goal of doing all of this is not to just be able to speak Italian for a little while. I want Italian to be a part of my life from now on. So when I'm done studying here, I'm going to let myself get as much sleep as possible.
So he's going to sleep as much as possible so that all of this info, all this input can settle into the hippocampus so he can keep it forever.
All at some point from all of the memorization of vocabulary and verb conjugations. The tricky thing is that when that excitement starts to fade, the culture of another country in another language is like stepping into another world. Netflix and other streaming websites have movies and TV shows in a variety of other languages. Throw up subtitles in the language that you're learning, not English, and try to follow along as much as you can. And rewind if you have to. Music is another one. I took a few songs from a couple of Italian artists that I really like, and I translated the lyrics with Google Translate. And
I'm wondering if he's giving just general language learning advice here, which under normal circumstances would be solid, but is he also implying that this was done throughout this week?
So I just spent over an hour listening to Italian podcasts as I ran. And, Italians speak very quickly, so most of the time I'm only able to understand about 25-30% of what's going on. Fortunately, I can pick out words, I can understand, I can generally kind of follow along with what's going on. But there was almost like this click, something that happened while I was running, and all of a sudden I felt like I was able to understand more of what they were saying. I don't know what that was exactly, but maybe my brain was kind of connecting the dots a little bit.
Actually described this process and this kind of eureka moment in my video on peak experiences. This is what happens when you shove a lot of input in your head and you have given it some time to kind of percolate, and it results in a leap of progress. But again, we're on a week timeline. I'm holding him to this timeline because this is the premise of the video.
I remember watching Amélie
if he's understanding 25 to 30% on a normal day, or I'm guessing earlier in the week, because remember, at the beginning of the week, he knew virtually nothing, and he's made this sudden leap, that's completely possible. I don't know about after 4 days. I'm going to go with no. These are his typical B-roll clips of him enjoying the language, being more passionate about it, being fun and creative with the learning process. But I don't like them. I'm going to be honest. I know it's petty.
School. But the truth is, I think you've just got to take the leap and go for it. Nobody likes to look or sound like a dummy, okay? I certainly don't. But there is just no way around that when you're learning a foreign language. You have to make the mistakes to test out what you learned, to correct and adjust and improve. Simply put, it's the best way to get better. You cannot just study your way to proficiency. Here's the truth. Some people will laugh at you for the mistakes that you make. Laugh with them. Learning a new language is a chance to practice humility.
I don't think he's ever practiced humility in a day of his life.
And meet other people that speak the language you're studying. Or, if you don't have access to that, you can once again use the internet. You can use an app like italki to Skype with a native speaker, or an app like HelloTalk to text people from other countries pen pal style. It's pretty amazing, and I like this option because it's free. I filmed my conversation with Giuseppe about 2 weeks ago, okay? And in that time, I've had plenty of opportunities to edit out some of the really dumb or silly mistakes that I made, but I'm not gonna do that. That's not the point. The point is not to not make mistakes. The point is to speak and connect with somebody and exchange ideas. It's to put your fear of failure aside for a second and open yourself up to something new. When I said I learned Italian in 7 days, I never meant that I would have like a perfect mastery over the language in such a short period of time. I don't care about perfection, I just care
Again,
about
he's finessing what he means by learning Italian in 7 days by saying, oh, it's never about perfection, it's just becoming good. But I see this also as a false sense of humility, of his own limitations and fears and all that. It's still clickbait, and there's no getting around the clickbait.
Dai. Sì. Ok, per cominciare, grazie per stare qua, per fare questo con me.
Grazie a te.
Ovviamente stiamo qua per vedere quanto ho potuto imparare in una settimana, quanto italiano ho potuto imparare in una settimana.
See, this is why he's a really good filmmaker. He sets up the scene, right? And he opens the long-awaited conversation, the moment of truth, with an opener like this. Very impactful. I'm not going to dignify this entire conversation with commentary. It's fake.
Due domande.
Good.
Come vuoi,
Bravo.
come vuoi. Ok? Sì? Va bene? Perfetto.
Giuseppe seems vaguely uncomfortable throughout this entire affair. Just very fidgety, kind of looking around. Notice that when Nathaniel is speaking, he makes these certain little expressions on his face. I'm not a body reading expert. I can read people pretty well, but there's something just very uncomfortable about this setup.
Ha cambiato i tuoi pensieri, la tua mentalità del mondo, dico?
Domanda difficile.
Ah sì.
Però ho già una risposta. Nel passato ho avuto amici che me l'hanno chiesto.
Sì.
E di solito la risposta sono sempre...
I'll continue my fake credentials and body reading. Look at the way that Nathaniel's body posture changes when Giuseppe starts talking. When he was talking, he was all casual and kind of leaning back in the chair. That shows confidence. Now he's all blocked off.
Riflette il contenuto culturale. Quindi la cultura si riflette tramite la lingua, come risposta è sì.
Sì, sono d'accordo con te. Ok. Poi
Notice I'm not actually knocking the speech itself. I can hear I mean, I understand some of it. I studied Italian last year for several weeks before deciding I wanted to focus more on, I think it was Farsi at the time. So even after 5 weeks of study and a kind of TARDIS effect of understanding a lot more than, like a disproportionate amount of time, forgot nearly all of it. Now, I can understand some just because I can understand French and Portuguese and a lot of Spanish, so there's that, again, that kind of TARDIS effect. I just do not see how it is temporally, mechanically, cognitively, in any way humanly possible to go from scratch to spontaneous and cohesive, coherent conversation in 1 week. Because let's remember the timeline, everybody. Day 0, very little, supposedly. 3 days spent doing the vocabulary drills. And remember, he was going to get rid of all kinds of superfluous words and focus on core words, of which apparently there's around 1,000. Then, on day 4, is when he apparently was doing tenses, conjugations, and things like that. And remember that there are like 21 tenses. I don't know. And then he, of course, was listening to and, making B-roll footage of him dancing or scrolling his phone, having fun with the language, and towards the end, having a nice good sleep, so that all of this will magically seep into the hippocampus, so he'll remember it not only for this conversation, but forever. So what's the huge difference then from this point, this experiment, and the 18 months of on again, off again? You would think that over 18 months, even if you kind of dabbled in it, that you would have a bit more recall. I understand that the intensified efforts should increase that. But when I studied Italian for 5 weeks, I studied it for several hours a day. Here's something else that happens when you cram a lot of input in your head and you need that input. Your brain will get rid of other things. You will live in a sea of chaos because of what your brain is attempting to do. When you shove more input than it can reasonably process, it will start chucking things that it thinks does not matter. You will lie in bed and think about the words. You'll dream about the words. You'll wake up and think about the words. But remember, he's saying that he's having fun with it, he's being kind of light with it, and he's only spending hours a day. Not all day. A few hours a day. He didn't actually give a solid figure in terms of the numbers per day that he was working. Beyond what I saw of is 2 to 3 hours. See, there's just not a lot of transparency in terms of the time. 1 week is not enough for me. I need to know how much intensive effort you put into this, but you didn't. Not over a week. And if you did, you definitely don't come out with a conversation like this. You just don't. There's nothing superhuman about this guy. You know what I think this is? Partially, they are long-form advertisements. I didn't even touch on all the advertisements that went through this. It is a self-indulgent, self-congratulatory, self-masturbatory film that is also a commercial. Now, I am a very proud woman, and I can border or cross the border of arrogance at times. Why am I sitting here acting like I'm the authority? Well, because I actually have thousands of hours of experience, that's why. Thousands. This idea that you can sit here and, through your own sheer will and genius, come up with conversational proficiency after a week is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The transformative process of taking something a mediocre surface level or just not a very deep level of understanding and ability to analyze and transforming into a highly analytical, reflective, insightful mind is a very, very long, difficult process. I find it insulting to my intelligence and to everyone else's intelligence that this man became conversational like this in 1 week. I'm sorry, but no, it's a lie. And a lot of people look up to him. And how many of them feel like utter crap that they don't live up to this? Being a confident person with an air of authority does make people listen. He's really good at making films and gathering an audience and getting a point across, but they are films. I don't like lies. And when I was his age, I was also, proud, and my intelligence was something that I kind of wore as a badge of pride, I don't know, badge of honor and pride. But looking back, I can see, at least I knew I didn't know a lot. And I would never presume, even now, to tell you how everything works. And that I'm always the smartest person in the room. And that everybody should admire me because of it. I'm not gonna lie and set up a scene to just make myself look good to gain followers and admirers. I just think it's distasteful, even as a proud person. Anyway, yeah, I really went in for him here. The dishonesty and the clickbait just triggers me bad. Alright, well, if you actually stuck through that, I am not expecting people to agree with me here, but that is my take on this guy and his content and his claims. And thank you for sticking around. Comment, like, subscribe, dislike, whatever you want. And I will see you later.